Hello and welcome to The Life You're Made For. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Pinney. Often our world feels reactive, confusing, and chaotic. On this show, we're going to slow down together. Take a breath, listen, and learn. We'll be joined in conversations with influential thinkers who will help us make new connections, understand our unique potential, check the beliefs we hold, and learn how to overcome unexpected challenges. I know that each and every one of us holds our own inner clarity, confidence, and courage, what I call 3C living and leading. So let's go after it together. I'm cheering you on. I am so excited to have my dear friend for, decades now, Jason.
Don't say that. It all started with a cup of coffee. That's what I mean. Decades. It actually all started with a moving truck, but I digress.
Yeah. I have to say your name first. This is Jason Squires, and I have known him for quite a while, and that's why I asked him to be on my podcast, because in The Life You're Made For, I really am selective about people that I have watched for years, not just months or weeks or hours, or not just the latest flash of the pan. It's people that I am watching from a distance or close near me, how they live out their life. And so Jason's someone I asked to come on my podcast. I know him and his wife very dearly, and we have known each other for over decades. So I'll let you start, Jason. How do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh man, it's fun being on the other side of the microphone because I'm usually the one introing. So this is great. I appreciate you having me on the podcast today. I am a coach for creatives. I love creatives so much, and I love doing that. And so I get to spend my days creating resources to help creatives thrive. You mentioned my family. I am a dad and a husband. I always tell people I'm a husband, I'm a dad, and I'm a creative. Those are the three things in my life. Married to Casey, and I've been married for 17 years now.
Yes.
And 3 beautiful daughters. And it's fun to be in the season we're in. We're heading into teenage life with our kids, which is crazy, and just kind of a whole new world for us as parents, and just kind of see them blossom and grow into just some amazing young ladies. Being a part of that, kind of being a part of their story, and kind of helping them build their foundation to launch well is just kind of the greatest. It's the greatest joys of my days. So.
I love that, and it's such a great on-ramp to why we believe what we believe, right?
Yeah.
We got little eyes watching us, but I guess I'll just jump in there. What are some of your core beliefs?
First of all, I just growing up in the church, understanding that we are not, we don't just cease to exist, we are on planet Earth for a reason, just to help people understand that we serve a creator. And it is getting to do all of those things and understand it, not not just have it be my side thing over here, but actually all my days are spent like living in my belief. And it's not just, I don't just go work somewhere and then come back and do the thing. It's all wrapped up in the fact that for those of us who find faith important in the Bible, the Bible opens up with God creating, and right in Genesis it says, "And God, and God created, God created," and so understanding that we serve a creative God, everything I do is rooted in that, and getting to help people understand that and help people see it is just it. It's not not something I take lightly.
Oh, I love that. We have a running joke on my team that, the 3 C's, clarity, confidence, courage. Well, everyone's voting for me to have that 4th C of creative, because they know I'm an incredibly creative person. I play music and I do painting and everything else, but it's also I'm creative with how I think and speak and write. And I love the creative process.
Yes.
And one of the things, and I'm sure you get this all the time, so I just want to get out ahead of it. What do you want to say to the people that go, "Oh, I'm not creative"?
Oh man, there is a term, a creative, right? Where it's somebody who it's like a friend of mine defined a creative as a steward of innovation. And I thought that was the great definition of what a creative is. But
Mm-hmm.
everybody has creativity
Mm.
inside of them. I have two older brothers who love spreadsheets. They love business, but
Yeah.
in their own way,
Mm-hmm.
they are creative. They love going in and making something. They
Mm-hmm.
love being a part of the creative process.
Mm.
They are not creatives. The English language doesn't have enough words to describe everything,
Yeah.
but we just talk about creativity separate from like the
Mm-hmm.
personality that
Mm-hmm.
a creative is, because those are the creative is more of who a person is. But like I said, everybody has it inside of them,
Mm-hmm.
and no matter where you're at or what you're doing, there is some form of the desire to make, and it may
Mm.
not feel like it often gets applied to the arts. People
Mm-hmm.
think, oh, creativity means painting, it means dancing, it means
Right.
music. No, it doesn't necessarily. It means making something from nothing,
Ooh, I love that.
right? I mean, think about it.
Yes. Yeah.
If you're my older brother makes
Mm-hmm.
like, he likes making spreadsheets,
Mm-hmm.
but that's where his brain works, and he understands that. But he loves sitting back and like a finished product,
Mm-hmm.
like helping him to turn his reports in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's creating, it's making something from nothing, and everybody has the ability to do that, but it's just kind of finding it and honing it. And some people, it's
Mm-hmm.
stronger than others, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just the way the world. That's just the way the world works, right?
It is. And I love this about you, Jason. I think we are similar in this way. You're
Yeah.
very inclusive. You happen to be a very talented musician, guitarist, singer. For those of you who don't know Jason, but he's just wonderful. And boy, he's got a pair of pipes. He can just belt it like nobody's business. So I've always loved hearing him play and sing. In fact, didn't you do the intro for my music for my podcast?
I did. I
Yes. Okay. I
did.
have to give you a nod there.
I did. I did. That was a fun project. That was fun.
Oh, I loved it. You were the first person that came to mind. So, but I think what I like about you is that you're so honoring to what creativity gets to look like, which is very similar to me with leadership.
Yep.
You know, you call yourself a creative coach. I call myself a leadership coach. But when someone says to me, "Oh, I'm not a leader," I want to look at them and I go, "Aren't you?"
Yeah.
Everybody's leading something. You
Yep.
may be leading a little two toddlers at home, or you may be leading a huge multi-million-dollar company. To me, they both count.
Yep.
And I think that's what I hear you saying as well. Everyone has a seat at the table here for
Yep.
creativity. And I would say the same thing with leadership. You get to name what that looks like. And I just love that that's what you do. That's very inclusive for our people.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, life is too short to
Mm-hmm.
be exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's so many moments in life that grab you and go, man,
Mm-hmm.
I need to stick with what's important, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of death around us in the last year or two, of people that are really close to our family, passing away from one thing or another, cancer, different forms of cancer. And like, it just, for us, we've stopped and gone, what's important? Like, what are the important values and beliefs that we hold to on a daily basis? And it comes back to family, number one, right? My family is my primary space. Like, I need to be present and accounted for my family from day one, and not gone, not disappearing. So what does that mean from when I take a step back and go, I'm also self-employed. Self-employed it's really easy to disappear.
Yeah.
And into your work, be gone. You mentioned I'm a musician. I travel full time, leading worship at churches. So I could be on the road every weekend away from my family, and I'm not going to do that, because my family is my first important space.
Yes.
And so, but how then it's, you sit back and go, how do you craft a life where you can make sure that you're present and make sure that you're also doing everything that you're supposed to be doing and what's important. The nice thing is it takes out the things that aren't important, and you can easily go, I don't, and that's not me. Like, I'm not, I always like to tell anybody I work with that I use the term creating a filter. Like you got to create a filter for what's important and go, these are the things that I can easily get out of my schedule, out of my way, that I'm going to say no to that because it's not going to do anything to help me better what I'm doing that's right in front of me.
Yeah.
And when I learned that in this process of kind of figuring out what I'm doing, it just kind of started all the questions started answering itself, and you go, oh,
yeah,
I can see that, my daughter is when as she becomes a teenager, like these are important years. I need to be here and available, and if I'm gone all the time, that doesn't work. And so we've made it a point as a family actually to be on the road together. And so oftentimes we will travel as a family, get on the road. My kids it's weird. They love road trips. It's strange. I have
cute.
3 children that are like, they don't think 3 or 4 hours. They're like, that's enough. That's nothing. Their friends complain about, driving a couple hours. Oh, next week I got to drive 3 hours. My kids are like, that's all that, I mean, we don't, and they're like, and their parents are like, yeah, then we have to stop 2 or 3 times. And I'm like, my kids are like, we drive 10, 12 hours. It's no big deal. They just love being out and getting to see those things. So.
Oh, and I have gotten to see you in action, and the way it says a lot about you and Casey, your wife, that you're creating an environment that they want to enjoy being in that little minivan with you and going all over the country. And I've watched how you pulled them in conferences. I had the privilege of being at a conference with you and watching them. They were running the ticket booth over there and selling merchandise. I was like, my goodness. They were,
and they asked me next time, they're like, can we please do that again? I was like, yes, you can. You absolutely are. That is your thing.
That's
can
so
be
cute.
That's right. That's amazing.
Oh, I love that. I love that because I think that's where our beliefs, and I'm hearing you say this, but they need to be reevaluated occasionally.
Yes.
And when you mentioned death and dying, boy, nothing like that to clarify what's really important, isn't it?
It puts a time clock on your life. All of a sudden you go, you don't think about it. You go, oh, it's going to happen. Like it'll happen when I'm 90. No.
Yeah.
I've had some friends that have passed away in their 50s and 60s and 40s, and I mean, several years ago I played at a funeral for a friend of ours who lost a child. Like I'm like, this is real life. And where does this anything that you're doing needs to be rooted in who you are, because we always say that tomorrow's not a guarantee. It's actually not.
Yeah.
And it's I had a friend a while back, he perfectly healthy, died in his sleep. Like, and you just go, I never thought I might not wake up tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And you just assume when I go to bed I'm going to wake up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the case. So what am I doing today that people go, I put it off and I'm going to work on that project later. I'm going to do the thing. And it's like, well, I don't want to be task driven. I want to be belief driven.
Yes.
And I don't want to be driven by like all the things I have to get done so then I can go do the thing that I want to do. It's like, no, all of the things that I'm doing should be supporting who I am.
Oh, well said.
And that's not, unfortunately, that's not always the case. And and so the more we've leaned into this in our marriage and our family, the more that we've seen so much fruit come out of it. Because it's like, I mean, as you mentioned, I mean, I have my daughter, like daughters that want, like, they want to hang out with us and they want to come be together. We want to be together as a family.
Yeah.
And it's like, they want to get in a minivan and drive across country because they have their own purpose as to why they're doing that.
Yep.
And we've set it as a goal before my oldest turns 18 to try and get him to all 50 states.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's they're currently, I think, at 28 states they've been to, and most of what's left is the East Coast, all the little states on the East Coast and Alaska. And so we're trying to, like, we have like five more years to go. can we get all 22 states in 5 years?
Oh,
And because it's like, I don't know, we live in a beautiful country, and it's like
yeah,
I want them to understand where they live is not just the little town that we live in,
right.
but we're actually in this huge country. And
Yeah,
what are some things that we can do and see and have an impact? Because
right,
that's who we are as a family.
right. Well, and I think too the idea of crisis or grief really does. I think what it does is it takes away all of the work you've probably been doing to convince yourself on beliefs that you really don't like anymore, or you don't feel like you even want in your life, and you don't have the energy to endure some of these things. That's was the unexpected gift of grieving for me. I realized how many things I was saying yes to that I just was like, I don't know why I'm saying yes to this.
Yeah.
Oh, I know why. Because I didn't want the fear of disappointing, or I want to make FOMO maybe,
Yeah.
or it's so hard to say no, and I just didn't want to go through the effort of doing no, and so
Yep.
yes was easier. You realize how much energy you're putting into your life and your world and your work that maybe aren't, to your point earlier, really aligned with some of your core beliefs. And man, I have found to really lean into the crises and the grieving as a reset button to say, do you have the energy for this?
Yep.
And I'm like, I am surprised at how many things I'm like, nah, nope, I really don't. Nope. And I don't even have the energy to feel disappointed about it. And I don't even have the energy to worry about you being disappointed about it. And I think it's that realization of how our beliefs get to evolve and in times of crisis, and you get to either one, evaluate them, or two, you get to adjust them for what you need in that season.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, there's so much. We have a tendency to make life more difficult than it needs to be,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's like when you say it, like you said, overcommitting to things where you just
Yeah.
go, I'm going to say yes because I have time in my schedule. I happen to say
Yeah.
yes, but all of the stuff we do, um, it becomes like the cloud that kind of then nothing else gets accomplished. So
Right.
then it's like, how useful am I
Yeah.
if I'm doing everything so I can't do anything?
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes is from Walt Disney. And at opening day at Disneyland, he said, "As long as there's imagination left in the world, Disneyland will never be complete."
Mm.
And I've taken that as kind of a quote for why we do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Because what that means is, as long as you can create, we're not done yet.
Yeah. Oh, I
And
love that.
as long as there's something, as long as I'm still here, there are
Mm-hmm.
ideas to be had.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do for me, if I overdo it,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm useless and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
living in my purpose and I'm
Yeah.
not living in who I am.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, then
Mm-hmm.
death around that, like the grief that comes around from us kind of
Yeah.
has to, those things realign.
Yep.
Like it happens, it's going to happen, but
Mm-hmm.
you take those moments to realign and go, man, I just need a
Mm-hmm.
break. And we were talking the other day just with my family and Casey's parents, and there we've had a lot of health stuff too as well
Mm.
going on. And I text back the other day, I just want a text message that said everything's fine. Like I just give me a minute, just kind of go, tell me, because it feels like there's so much chaos in the world,
Yeah.
and every time I turn around, there's something else
Yeah.
that's like wrong or broken or sick
Yeah.
or dead or dying and it's
Yeah.
like, the only way that any of that makes sense and works is if you're rooted in who you are.
Yes.
And if you're not rooted in who you are, that chaos is just going to spin you. Like
Yeah.
your feet aren't planted, right?
Yeah.
In order to be rooted, that's what the rooted means, right? You're
So
planted.
true. Yeah.
And if I'm not planted in who I am and what I believe, then it's this that tornado is just gonna pick me up and spin me around,
Yeah.
and then um and then what, right? And
Yeah.
then I'm a casualty of my own circumstances.
Yeah. Well, a casualty of your own beliefs. As you're
Yep.
talking, I was like, I think one of the beliefs that I have evolved from is this idea that I have to strive and make life work for me. I wouldn't have told you that on the outside because it's not like the right thing to say, but
Yeah.
internally, I literally in the first half of my life was believing, you know what, my energy is motivated by kind of the stress and striving and going after it. And I realized I've outgrown that belief. I'm done. I'm done with that. And as I move into the second half of my life, I want my energy to be motivated by peace. And if it's not, then I am declining offers or I'm declining opportunities because nothing is worth jeopardizing my peace.
Yep.
And I used to think like, oh, I'm just lucky if I get picked, that the FOMO or the feeling of like, oh my gosh, don't leave me out or pick me. I'm in the front row with my hand raised, call on me. And that's really about validating the ego or the fear that you're not measuring up. I mean, you can see where these beliefs are coming from. And these are what I call the false beliefs. And so I guess I want to ask you, what's maybe a false belief that maybe you see now, or maybe a belief that you've grown out of and how that shifted for you?
Yeah, I grew up in a business driven house. Where like my dad was self-employed. I always had that business brain. And my brothers all owned businesses, and then we opened up a business about in 2012, having a music teaching studio. And as that started to progress, I was like, man, I don't like this. Like this is not, I did it because it felt like, that's what I was like it was like, oh, I can own a business. I can run a business. I know how to do it. Right. I know the steps to doing the thing that I'm going to go do because I've just always been in that scenario. Then 2023, we closed it down, and some time after I was sitting with it, just realizing, man, I don't want to do that anymore. Like that, I'm not the business owner. That's not who I am. I actually want to be like, look at more of the creative brain, right? Because there's a business brain, creative brain. I can do the things, but just because you can do it doesn't mean you're going to be successful at it, or it's going to fuel who you are. And so I've really, really been doing like unpacking that over the last couple years, as we've kind of unwind yourself from being wrapped up in owning a business for so long, and realizing that I was not I don't regret owning it. I don't regret doing it at all. You guys have been in the same scenario where you have a storefront. That's just a whole nother world. But like, it's all the things I learned in those 11 years, things I use in my coaching. But it's really digging in and going, I need to get rid of all of the things that I don't, that are false inside of me. Actually, knowing I was coming on this podcast, I posted on Facebook recently and said, what's something you believed as a child that you found out as an adult was not true?
Yes.
And the comments were amazing. The things where you just grow up with this thought. You grow up with this thought of like, somebody commented and said, I learned as an adult, I'm actually allowed to drive barefoot. Because she said, when I was a teenager, my mom told me that I would get arrested or a ticket if I drove barefoot.
Oh, how funny.
And she's like, you can actually drive barefoot. So consult your local law enforcement before you drive barefoot.
I love that.
Right? But somebody commented below it, and she said, well, actually your mom was right. You are allowed to drive barefoot. 10 minutes later, she commented and said, oh my gosh, I just learned that that's actually true. You are allowed to drive barefoot, and I've always thought that you weren't. Oh. And it was like unpacking these just little things like that where you go, as a kid, you just kind of like learn, we all grew up. I mean, I grew up in a car where like your parents said they have to turn the light off because you couldn't see out the window.
Yes.
And then as an adult, I'm like, I can still see out the window. And I remember as a kid going, what are they seeing that I'm not seeing?
Yeah.
But like because they were parents were the ultimate authority. So everything everything like in that scenario, growing up,
Yeah.
whatever world you were in, that's where you learned all of the things and
Mm-hmm.
all the little things that you carried on into adulthood and to find out, wait a minute, like what is, so I was sitting back, but the interesting thing that I was processing with this is that kids today don't look at parents the same way because
Mm.
they literally have access to the entire world,
Mm-hmm.
and anything you can now find uh supporting us, like
Mm-hmm.
supporting facts to whatever you want to believe,
Yeah.
and it will tell you that uh online will tell you that everything you believe is what you believe is
Mm-hmm.
accurate, and what you believe is accurate, and what you believe is accurate. And it's
And the
like, well,
algorithms will match you.
and the algorithms will match you, and then all
Yeah.
of a sudden you are building up this world of
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, I am right, I know I am right. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's it's been interesting. I mean, you just launched your kids into the world,
Yeah.
and we are 5 to 8 years from launching our kids into the world,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, where what do we do as parents
Mm-hmm.
to help that process to go, man, of course I don't want to send my kids with any false belief into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Who would want that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, how do we now have to send them with the tools to unpack it
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the actual belief.
Yes.
Because man, growing up, if I needed to know something, I looked at the encyclopedia
Yeah.
on the bookshelf,
Yeah.
and if it
Yeah.
wasn't in the encyclopedia, it didn't exist.
Yeah.
It wasn't a
Exactly.
fact,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't a thing. If it's not in this series of books on my bookshelf,
Yeah.
it doesn't. It must not exist.
Yeah.
I must be crazy.
Well, that's a good
And
point.
but now it's like, man, if I want to believe something,
Mm-hmm.
I can find proof that it's true.
Yeah.
And so at that point, it's like everything that I think and believe is accurate.
Yeah.
But is it? Right?
Yeah.
And so it's trying to go, now you have to kind of, instead of learning about how to do, it's like
Mm-hmm.
you have to learn the tools to figure it out for yourself.
Sure.
And so that's been I've been really kind of chewing on that recently,
Mm.
processing through what that means in, I mean, just the people that I'm working with, helping
Mm-hmm.
them unpack that,
Mm-hmm.
as well as, I mean, my own kids. So
Oh, yeah. Isn't that fascinating? And I think in the work that we both do, we are guides to so many different people. And we've had such amazing guides,
yep.
all of which influence our beliefs. So I guess I'm curious, what are some guides that are kind of coming to your mind that has influenced some of your beliefs that's helped form you with who you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have been I have been really blessed to be sitting with the podcast that we've been doing, to sit around a table with people that are just so smart,
Mm.
and guys that I go, I read your book, and
Mm.
you formed my thoughts on leadership, or you formed my
Mm.
thoughts on creativity, and now we're sitting and having a dialogue about it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those guys, really high level thinkers, a guy named Rory Noland, and
Mm.
he and I read his book many years ago, and then they've had him on the podcast. He got to speak at a conference recently, and just love that guy. And now it's like he's physically speaking into who I am and where I'm going, and
Mm.
it's been an amazing scenario to be a part of. And I think
Mm.
um, and then kind of growing up, I always found myself looking to who was um, like looking for who could pour into me. I
Mm-hmm.
remember in high school, there was another worship leader that I would sit under, and I was leaning on him a lot. He and I would co-lead quite a bit. And one day he called me and said, he said, "Hey, I can't come in today. You're gonna have to take it. Like you're in charge." And I
Mm.
was like, "Nope, I'm not ready for this." Like,
Yeah.
and he walked in the back of the room partway through my set. He wasn't sick. He just called me to go, I needed to push you. And so I think those types of scenarios that are like, you need people in your life to go, like, I think the word coach gets gets kind of a bad taste in some people's mouth, where like they might go, I don't need a coach. I don't need a mentor. You do. Like everybody needs somebody pouring into them, because you can only go so far without, now what, right? Then we're just existing and kind of maintaining. And I think, as we talked about life being so short, it's like, I want to constantly be growing. Like I don't ever want to stop. Yes. I don't ever want to stop bettering myself. I don't ever want to stop. I don't ever want to stop, like thinking deeper and continuing on and processing. And some of the greatest minds that I know have people pouring into them. And it's like that to me is a testament to, like, no matter where you're at in life, look for somebody that can help you in that process. And don't go at it alone. You might, I think there's probably people listening that are just I don't need a coach. I'm not building a business. I'm not doing anything. No, but as you mentioned earlier, Heather, like, you're leading a home.
Yeah.
Like, who's pouring into that thought? And it's like, there should always be people pouring in some way. And I think the beautiful thing about today's world is, as I mentioned earlier, yes, you can find answer anything you want to support your belief, but that's also a beautiful thing, right? Because you can log into podcasts, and like, your mentor could be you're on a podcast, you're listening to a podcast, and you just glean from what's being taught. I think sometimes people think you have to be, one-on-one with somebody. Well, that maybe isn't your thing, but there's always a voice that's helping you grow and kind of listening and helping you process the things that are in front of you.
What I love about what you just said is probably this very focused, tenacious journey I'm on right now to eradicate the ego.
Yeah.
And Richard Rohr talks a lot about it, one of my favorite thinkers right now, where he's just talking about this false self and this true self. And the false self is easily offended. The false self isn't teachable. The false self thinks they've got all the answers. All my fingers pointing back. I've been there, right? The true self says, I think I need some help to level up. I think I want to invite people in to support me being a better human. And I think this awareness that the true self gets to be discovered and explored and unpacked by, and I will clarify this, by good guides and by good people in your life. There's dysfunctional, toxic ones out there, which we won't go down that road. But I think it's that awareness that these guides that are going after your true self. And it makes me think of my latest book I wrote on grace space. It's 7 practices of trying to go after our true self. I believe it's one of my core beliefs. I believe humans have a very good heart. It just got a little messed up and damaged along the way. And there's lots of layers around it. And to return to that good heart. And the reason I know this is you look into the eyes of a newborn child and you look in the eyes of a toddler, there's goodness there.
Yes.
Something happens along the way. And so in the work that I do, it's like trying to find ways to bring people back to their very good sense of self and whispering to them, you are good. You are good. And you get to return to that goodness. And I will support anything that has robbed you of that goodness, but you don't have to abandon that sense of self. And I think one of the things that stands out to me with you, Jason, is you said this off the cuff, but it really caught my ear. And it was probably a couple months ago, but it was around the ego. And I remember you saying, I don't want to be people's guru. I don't want to show up and for it to be about me. And you do walk into these great situations where you're kind of the focal point. You're the one they hired, that brought in, and
right.
And can you speak to a little bit of what you do to to not only manage your ego, but to not be, I call it pushing the pedestal out from underneath you. Like,
Yeah.
people are going to try and put you on a pedestal, but to be a good guide, it isn't about standing on a pedestal or being the sage on stage. It's about serving the human in front of you.
Yep.
And helping them find their true sense of self. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely. I love this. I was the yes, standing on a pedestal, people need the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And the best way to communicate something to somebody is to be relatable. Mm-hmm. And they're gonna understand more about what you're sharing if they understand more about who you are. And so whenever if I teach a workshop, if I fly out to a conference, people attend a conference and they're going bouncing from class to class, I start every class with a picture of my family. I just the family comes up first. Like they're like, I thought I was in a class about what X, and I'm like, well, yes, you are, but I'm gonna take the first few minutes and show you a picture of my family because they are. My wife is home with her kids while I'm on the road. All of the people here that are teaching have families that are home, so we can be here today to share with you what's going on. We are human. You are human, and it breaks down the I am better than you conversation. Right. Like, I'm a dad with kids. These are my girls. I'll usually tell a funny story that will relate to the room. And then you can see the shoulders kind of drop. And then I also end all of my classes with my actual contact information. Like, you want to call me? Here's my phone number. Like, I'm a person. I'm not I'm not hiding behind something. I don't do any of these things because I have to. I do them because I want to. You call me, I'll answer. You want my email address? I will respond because I actually care about you as a person being better at what you do. And I will, sit and listen. It's the living on a mountaintop and speaking down to people listening. It'd be very lonely. It's, yeah, I love, it's so much about just making sure that people understand that, everybody's human. And, I simply just want to be a part of the story.
Yeah.
And it can help you continue on in the story and know that you've in those scenarios, like, we'll be friends. And so one of the things we do on our podcast is I end every podcast with a food question. And it's a very intentional move. When I first started the podcast, I was like, I'm going to be interviewing people that some people would think are out of touch or they're out of connection. I'm never going to be able to sit down and talk to whoever this person is. And I was like, how do I figure out a way to make every person relatable? Let's talk about food. So we end up every conversation with, if you and I were to have a meal, what would be on the table? Like, what food would be in front of us? And you hear people talk about like barbecuing, or one guy was like, I don't cook. I'd probably have a stack of to-go menus. It's like, well, that tells you like the person, right? One guy said he's on the road as a speaker. He travels with cereal. He's like, I love cereal. Like, I eat cereal 3 meals a day. I love it so much. And I'm like, that's like a funny little quirk, right? But you go, now when you hear this guy and you see him and you go, I love cereal. You love cereal. Like, it's a common denominator that to me just helps. It helps break down the wall between what would be considered a platform versus being able to have a conversation with somebody. And I do everything I can to help minimize that platform and be real relatable and real relational. So
I love that about you. And I think that our world needs more of that. And I guess for our listeners, if you're thinking about hiring a coach or a therapist or a mentor, anyone in your life, look for someone who is making it relatable, like Jason said, and using themselves as a common modeling for with you of being transparent and authentic of what it is that they're grappling with versus a superiority. And I think that's, and I think about the name of my show, The Life You're Made For. And I think the commitment and the belief that you and I both share is it's your life. It's not my life. And the guides out there that are not helpful, that are probably hurting, are the ones that are saying, do it like me because it validates me and my ego. The ones that are really good out there, the good guides, are saying, I don't know, it's your life, but I'm going to stay in this with you until you figure out the life that you're made for. And I'll ask you the questions and I'll support the process because I believe deep down inside of you, your clarity, confidence, and courage is sitting there swirling around. Your creativity, let's add the fourth one there. It's all swirling around in there inside of you. And it's my job to make it a very comfortable, safe space or a grace space for you to start exploring what's been whispering at you for a while or what you're longing for deep down, and to be able to start trusting that and believing that, and then letting them become their own guide for their life or their own hero, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, the people that are around you, I mean, there's no hiding from this fact that we're in a world right now where everybody has a belief, right? Everybody has, and they're strong. They are strong. But there's a tendency. I love gray space, and I'm gonna kind of bounce off the book for a second in this conversation because it's okay for people across the table to believe something different. It's okay for people to not think exactly like you. And we can still all coexist together and be together and have conversations and love on each other. And that is something I love that you just said your mission is to eradicate the ego in the world. Because that is where I sit. That is the place that I will continue to be at. And because it's like, I love seeing people with different beliefs and different thoughts sitting around, dialoguing, getting to know each other, and understanding all of that scenario. I regularly will look around at like Costco, and I'm just going, no, there will never be a time again where all of these people are in the same room, right? As you kind of scan the room and go, all of our stories crossed at 4:00 on a Tuesday in Costco, but we all are going different directions, doing different things. But I think that's what makes the world beautiful.
Oh, it is.
And
it's I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think the same thing with the historical period. Think about all the historical periods that you and I could have been born in. You and I got to be born in the same era, and we got to cross paths together. We got to meet each other. I mean, lucky me. And I think that with everybody that comes in front of me, I go, you could have been born a century later or earlier. I could have been born a century. There's a reason we are all put in this moment.
Yep.
And what is our role? Is it to inflate our ego and make ourselves feel better and bigger and then die? I mean, what a bleak existence, right?
That sounds awful.
Doesn't it sound awful?
It sounds awful.
But a lot of people will live that way. And you're looking at some of these people who are just clamoring after fame and fortune. And I'm like, what if our true belief as a society was, lucky me, I got to be in this era with this person sitting across from me. What is my role in serving this individual? That's where I feel like those are the type of guides I want in my life. That's the type of guide I want to be. And even particularly as I age, and I like to start calling it, instead of aging, saging, as we're saging, Jason, it's that awareness that we are accumulating and growing in our wisdom, not for the sake of superiority or for having all the answers, but to better serve humanity.
Yes. Oh, it's so good. So good, Heather. This is so good.
Well, I love our conversation. So rich. As we wrap up, I guess I'll say this. What's some encouraging words you want to leave with our listeners?
Love people. love them, love, and make time for people. And because you don't know when they won't be there. And also, you don't know how your holding the door for somebody is actually going to better their day. And I love stopping and holding a door for somebody that's walking in a building, smiling at them, just to have a great day. My hope is that that bounces them off into maybe shifting them from off of a bad phone call, or they just. I had this recently at the UPS store, and this lady, she was probably 85 night. She just walked up. I held the door for her, and she looked at me. She smiled and she said, "I'm glad to know there's still good people in the world." And I was like, "Your definition of good people is someone who holds the door for you, like that." Yeah. Like that to me is like that's such a small space, and it's like just the little things to do. So anything you can do to love on people and just be available is like you said, serve humanity, and I think the world will be a better place for it.
Oh, I love it, and I'll build on that too. Stay compassionate, stay curious. I think that's the thread that runs through Grace Space. Stay compassionate to our fellow human beings and stay curious about where everybody's coming from and really the stories that they've lived.
So good.
Well, thank you, my friend. So fun having you on here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. And everyone, we both, Jason and I, we are cheering you guys on.